Yo, as you can see, we are now at Crater Lake National Park. We had a wonderful night's sleep at the Holiday Inn Express last night. One of the things that you'll experience on a road trip to the Oregon coast is that a lot of the motels and hotels are near the freeway or near a major road. So you definitely need some brown noise or some white noise machine, or just use your phone to drown out some of the traffic noise during the night. Otherwise, today we're going to be hanging out in Crater Lake and doing some hiking here. Crater Lake is a pretty simple national park. It's basically just the lake and a lot of trees and mountains nearby. Otherwise, there's not too many landmarks here. So we're only going to be spending about 3 hours here, and then we're going to head to Klamath Falls to check into our hotel. I forgot to mention that the breakfast at the Holiday Inn Express was also pretty good. It's the typical hotel chain kind of breakfast with the pancake machine that we had last time at the Best Western. Everything else was pretty typical. They did have some omelets that were pretty good, and otherwise same old breakfast. This is our last day of activity. Today we're going to be hiking Garfield Peak, which is one of the most strenuous and most highly reviewed trails at Crater Lake. Tomorrow we're going to be heading back home to San Jose. Garfield Peak, I think, is one of the tallest mountains that surrounds Crater Lake. You can see how high we are right now. We've made it to the top of Garfield Peak. It took us about an hour to get here. The hike was pretty evenly strenuous throughout the whole trail. It took us, only one water break for us to get here. So it wasn't that bad. It was definitely the most strenuous hike that we've done together, but it wasn't that bad. About 99% of the hike is not shaded, so you'll definitely need to bring a bucket sun hat and maybe some sunglasses and definitely some sunscreen. Overall, we wouldn't recommend this hike unless you just want to do a hike in Crater Lake. The view from the peak is very similar to other viewpoints that you can access by just driving there, so you don't really need to do this hike in order to get this view. However, along the hike there are a lot of different views of the lake while you're walking up the trail. So the actual destination is not great, but along the trail there are places where you can take a break and soak in the scenery. So overall, if you just wanted to do kind of a straightforward kind of hike that's semi-strenuous and takes about an hour to get to the top and maybe about 30 minutes to get back down, then you should check out the Garfield Peak Trail. And that's all for our time at Crater Lake. As I said before, there's not that much variety of landmarks at Crater Lake, mostly just some trails and mostly trees and the views of the lake itself. The lake is very beautiful. It's deep blue and very placid. It's a very serene lake. Right now we are going to head back to our car and drive to Klamath Falls, where we will check into our motel and get our last dinner of this road trip. Our final dinner of this road trip was at Thai Orchid Cafe on Main Street in Klamath Falls. This restaurant serves pretty authentic Thai food, and we got the pad woon sen, the yellow curry with shrimp, and also the potak seafood. The potak seafood is basically a spicy seafood soup. The pad woon sen is a clear noodle dish with some onions and shrimp and also some pork. So overall, everything at this restaurant tasted great. The decor of the restaurant was very festive, the service was amazing, and overall the restaurant was very comfortable to sit in, and the tables were comfortable size. So we highly recommend checking out Thai Orchid Cafe if you are in the Klamath Falls area. After our dinner at Thai Orchid, we went to check out the Fred Meyer store. The Fred Meyer store is not in California, I don't think, so this is our first time going into a Fred Meyer. And at the front door of the Fred Meyer, there's the claw stuffed animal machine, and it was ridiculously cheap. It's 4 tries for $1, and Claire found a technique to win 2 of them.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay. Our last motel of the road trip is the Golden West Motel in Klamath Falls. It's a homely motel owned by, I believe, an old couple who lives on the site. They are very friendly, and the motel has nice touches. And overall, it's a very comfortable motel so far. There is some road noise because it's right next to the main road where people are driving like 45 or 50 miles an hour. But otherwise, we got a room that's kind of on the inside of the campus. So hopefully it's not that loud tonight. Tomorrow morning, we will be heading back to San Jose and concluding our Oregon Coast and Crater Lake road trip. Hope you enjoyed our adventure and join us again for our next adventure. Yo! So now that we've completed our road trip, we wanted to do a recap and go over the things that we enjoyed and some of the things that we learned during the road trip. First of all, you can easily spend a whole month on an Oregon coast or an Oregon road trip because there are so many different natural landmarks and different parks that you really want to visit when you're driving on the way to the Oregon coast or in Oregon, but you don't really have a chance to stop at those because you didn't plan them out. So we did a significant amount of planning for this road trip, about 4 or 5 hours, and we hit all of our landmarks or our points of interest. So if you are planning out an Oregon road trip, you might want to add some time where you can kind of wing it and stop at places that you might not have planned to stop at. So that's the one thing that we learned, is that there are so many more landmarks, so many more points of interest on an Oregon coast road trip. So in terms of the things that we enjoyed, the number one thing that we enjoyed was the hikes in Fern Canyon. So Fern Canyon is very beautiful, it's very wet, it's very green, and the hikes there are just beautiful, especially the enchanted forest kind of situation that you have with the trails that are connected to Fern Canyon. And the other things that we enjoyed were the Grove of the Titans hike and the drive to the Grove of the Titans. So the drive to Fern Canyon and also the drive to the Grove of the Titans was very memorable because of the trees and because of the route. It's a little bit adventurous. It's a little bit of an adventurous kind of drive, but it's definitely something that sticks with you through the road trip. And so those are the things that we liked. And in terms of the things that we kind of were disappointed with, number one is the Crater Lake. I think Crater Lake National Park is kind of, it's not like a letdown, but it's not that much stuff to do there in terms of different landmarks, as we mentioned in the video previously. The Crater Lake is mostly just the lake and also just a bunch of trees and whatnot, so we didn't really find that it was that exciting there, especially because also there's not that many trees and there's not that much shade at Crater Lake. It's mostly sunny and you're walking around feeling kind of hot, especially in August. And the other thing that we noticed on the road trip is that it's a problem along all of the west coast of the US, which is that there are a lot of homeless people and people who are, mentally have mental issues or are drug addicts. So that's the other thing that we noticed during our road trip that we felt was kind of unfortunate. And the last thing was there was a lot of haze on many parts of our road trip. And I think that's because of all of the wildfires and whatnot that are going on in California and also in Oregon. And that's one of the things that kind of degraded our experience with the scenery a little bit. Even though we were seeing very beautiful things in the distance, a lot of times they were blocked by a significant amount of haze. So once again, overall, this is a road trip that's very memorable, especially if you like nature at all. If you hate nature, then it's probably not something that would be great to do. During the road trip, you kind of do have to do your planning before you leave for the road. Either you can do your planning at the motels or hotels, or you have to do your planning before you even leave for the road trip. And the reason is that the cellular signal on the Oregon coast is really bad. We would go 8 to 10 hours on some days without any cell phone signal. So you can't really be on the coast and then plan out your restaurants while you're on the coast. So do some initial planning beforehand, and then you can do some more detailed planning while you're in your motels and hotels. Overall, the motels and hotels were very comfortable on the road trip. There was nothing that we encountered that was a major issue with any of the motels or hotels that we stayed at, and we picked the motels and hotels mostly based on Google reviews and that kind of thing. So so overall, we really enjoyed this road trip. I think we enjoyed it a lot more than we were anticipating, because it's really an adventure. The trails that you encounter and the trails that you navigate during the road trip are fun. Like there's like logs you can walk over, little streams. You're constantly in contact with a whole bunch of streams and water and that kind of thing. So it's definitely a memorable road trip for nature lovers. And even if you don't like nature but you like walking, it's definitely a road trip that you should take at some point in your life. So hope you found that helpful. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again in the next adventure.